If someone doesn't value your presence, it's not a reflection of your worth, it's a reflection of their priorities. Read that again. Let it sink in. Too many people walk around thinking, "What's wrong with me?" when really there's nothing wrong with them at all. The truth is, we live in a world where people are busy, distracted, and self-focused. And sometimes when someone doesn't respond to you the way you hope they would, it has nothing to do with your value. It has everything to do with where they are in their own life, their own mindset, and what they prioritize. Now, let me be honest, because that's what I do. If you're bending over backwards trying to get someone to see you, to appreciate you, to include you, and they still don't, that's your cue to stop. That's your cue to take your power back. You're not on this planet to constantly audition for someone's attention. You're not here to prove yourself worthy. You are already born worthy. You don't have to convince anyone of your value. Your job is not to fit into someone's life by shrinking yourself or chasing them. Your job is to stand in your worth and let people who get it find you. Too often, we confuse rejection with failure. We think if they didn't invite me, if they don't return my calls, if they pulled away, it must be me. But sometimes, people don't have the capacity to give you what you deserve. Maybe they're emotionally unavailable. Maybe they're caught up in their own pain. Or maybe they're simply not your people. And that's okay. The sooner you stop trying to force yourself into their lives, the sooner you free yourself to live yours more fully. And let me tell you this. When you stop chasing the people who don't value you, you give yourself the chance to attract those who do. But that can't happen if you're constantly pouring energy into relationships that are one-sided. You don't need to be in every circle. You don't need every person to understand you. You need the right people, people who meet your energy, people who appreciate your authenticity, people who don't make you beg for a seat at the table. So the next time someone doesn't reciprocate your effort, stop and ask yourself, is this a reflection of me or them? And most of the time, it's going to be about them, their bandwidth, their focus, their insecurities, their limitations, their limitation. And you've got better things to do than wait for someone to see what's already amazing about you. Here's the truth. Your worth isn't negotiable. It's not something other people get to vote on. And if you keep tying your value to someone else's reaction, or lack thereof, you're going to spend your life on an emotional roller coaster. That's not power, that's not peace, and you deserve both. So stop forcing conversations that don't flow. Stop chasing people who pull away. Stop trying to convince anyone that you're enough, because you are enough. You were enough before they didn't answer your message. You were enough before they ghosted you. You were enough when you walked in the room, and you're enough walking out of it too. The people who are meant to be in your life will not need to be convinced to stay. They'll want to be there. They'll show up. They'll call back. They'll reciprocate. But none of that can happen if you're too busy chasing what's not meant for you. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is walk away, not in anger, not in drama, but in truth. The truth that says, I don't need to be here if I'm not seen. I don't need to beg for love. I don't need to earn respect. I already deserve it. So no, don't force yourself on people. Show up as you are. Let them decide. And if they don't choose you, let that be their loss, not your burden. Because real connection doesn't require pushing. It doesn't require proving. It just flows. And once you stop trying to force your way into spaces that don't value you, you start building a life full of places and people that do. And that changes everything. Forced connections drain energy, not build it. We've all felt it. That sense of strain, that feeling like you're trying way too hard to keep something alive that just isn't working. Whether it's a friendship, a relationship, a colleague, or even a family member. When the connection isn't mutual, when it's not natural, it takes more out of you than it gives. You walk away feeling tired instead of inspired, heavy instead of uplifted. And that's a red flag, not a foundation. You weren't made to carry the weight of a relationship all by yourself. If you're always the one initiating, always the one explaining yourself, always the one trying to fix the distance or justify their silence, what are you actually building? Because a real connection doesn't require constant explanation. It doesn't require you to hustle for it every single day. It simply exists because both people want to be there. Both people are invested. Both people care. When you force a connection, you're pouring out energy that never returns. You're emotionally investing in someone who may not even notice. And over time, that doesn't just affect your energy, it impacts your self-esteem. You start questioning yourself, you start shrinking, you start wondering what you're doing wrong. And the answer is nothing. You're just trying to plant seeds in soil that isn't fertile. You're trying to light a fire where there's no spark. And no matter how much effort you put in, it won't grow unless the other person wants it to. Let me be brutally honest here, because you need to hear it. You can't force chemistry. You can't force loyalty. You can't force someone to be curious about you, excited about you, invested in you. Either they feel it or they don't. And when they don't, forcing the connection doesn't bring you closer. It pushes you further away from the peace you deserve. Every time you convince yourself to keep trying, even though you're exhausted, even though you know in your gut it's one-sided, you betray your own needs. Now, don't confuse effort with forcing. Relationships do require effort, but the effort has to come from both sides. Healthy relationships, whether they're personal or professional, are built on reciprocity. There's a give and a take. There's communication. There's presence. There's effort. When you're the only one putting in all the work, you're not in a connection. You're in a performance. And performing is draining. It burns you out. It turns love into labor. And that is not what connection is supposed to feel like. You're allowed to protect your energy. You're allowed to stop trying. You're allowed to choose peace over proving yourself. The right people won't need to be chased. They'll meet you where you are. They'll match your energy. They'll make you feel seen and heard without you having to beg for it. You don't need to force a seat at a table that was never built for you. Build your own table. And when you do, you'll be amazed how different life feels when the connections in your life actually feed you instead of depleting you. Forced connections also come with a high emotional tax. They breed resentment. Because when you constantly give and get nothing back, you don't just feel tired. You feel invisible. You feel like you don't matter. And that hurts. That pain isn't because you're weak. It's because your energy was meant for something great. It was meant to be shared in places where it's welcomed, appreciated, and reciprocated. You don't have to keep knocking on doors that remain closed. Maybe the door's shut for a reason. Maybe that disconnection is saving you from something misaligned. Here's what you need to know. If you stop forcing, you'll start flowing. Real connection doesn't feel like pressure. It feels like presence. It feels like alignment. It feels like ease. Not because it's perfect, but because it's honest. And that honesty saves you time, energy, and emotional pain. It allows you to focus on who you are, what you value, and who truly belongs in your life. So stop draining yourself for people who don't fill you back up. If you feel like you're always the one holding the relationship together, maybe it's time to loosen your grip, not to punish anyone, but to free yourself. Because the people who are meant for you, they won't feel forced. They'll feel like peace. Respect is mutual and non-negotiable. That means if you have to ask for it, chase it, or constantly remind someone to give it to you, the foundation is already cracked. You can't build a strong relationship on shaky ground, and respect is the solid rock everything else stands on. When it's not there, nothing else truly works. Not trust, not love, not communication. Respect isn't optional. It's the minimum requirement for any meaningful connection, friendship, partnership, or even a work relationship. And if someone can't meet you there, they shouldn't have access to you. We live in a world that teaches us to be agreeable, to tolerate poor behavior, to make excuses for people who treat us poorly because they're busy, going through something, or just being themselves. But there comes a point when you have to stop rationalizing and start recognizing. People who respect you show it. You never have to guess. You never have to bet. Respect shows up in how they speak to you, how they listen, how they include you, and how they respond when you express your needs or boundaries. When you're in a space where your thoughts are dismissed, your efforts are ignored, or your boundaries are consistently pushed, that's not just a lack of attention, it's a lack of respect. And here's the thing. You teach people how to treat you. Every time you tolerate disrespect, you're giving silent permission for it to continue. Every time you bite your tongue instead of speaking up, you're telling them your comfort matters less than their behavior. That's not humility, that's self-betrayal, and you're better than that. Respect goes beyond just being nice. Niceness can be fake. Respect is real. It means someone sees you as a human being with value. It means they consider your time, your thoughts, your space. It means they don't cross lines they know will hurt. And if they do, they take responsibility and correct it. Not because they got caught, but because they care. If you're constantly explaining to someone how to treat you, they're not respecting you. They're tolerating you until they can get what they want. It's also important to remember that respecting yourself is the first step to being respected by others. When you stop lowering your standards just to maintain a connection, you shift the entire dynamic. You show up differently. You stop apologizing for having boundaries. You stop staying silent to keep the peace. And you start realizing that the people who can't respect you when you're being true to yourself were never your people to begin with. Some of the most powerful moments in life come when you decide to walk away from someone who refuses to give you the basic respect you deserve, not because you're bitter, not because you want revenge, but because you finally love yourself enough to stop settling. Respect isn't something you earn by overgiving. It's something you expect as a baseline, and if someone doesn't meet that, it's on them, not you. People who truly respect you won't test your boundaries, they'll honor them. They won't mock your dreams, they'll support them. They won't silence your voice, they'll invite it in. And if you're not experiencing that, you don't need to fight harder, you need to step back. Because when you raise your standards, the right people will rise to meet them, and the wrong people will fall away. Let them. This doesn't mean you cut everyone out over one mistake. It means you become a mirror. You reflect back the energy people give you. If someone consistently shows up with integrity, honesty, and care, you match that. If they show up with disregard, disrespect, and selfishness, you don't match that. You remove yourself quietly, powerfully, with self-respect. At the end of the day, your peace is more important than someone else's comfort. Your self-worth is more important than keeping the connection. And your ability to look in the mirror and say, I don't let people treat me like I don't matter. That's everything. That's your power. Respect isn't just a value, it's a boundary, and it should never be up for negotiation. Rejection is redirection. That phrase might sting the first time you hear it, especially when you're in the middle of being overlooked, ghosted, left out, or flat out told no. But here's the truth most people don't want to admit. Some of the best things that ever happened to us start with a door closing in our face. That rejection, as painful as it is in the moment, is often life pointing you in a new direction, a better one. A path that's more aligned with who you really are, not who you were trying to be for someone else. Think about it. How many times have you wanted something so badly? A person, a job, a friendship, an opportunity, only to have it fall apart, disappear, or never even begin? And how many of those situations, in hindsight, turned out to be the best thing that never happened? That's not coincidence. That's clarity. That's life clearing space for something better, even when you're not ready to see it yet. When someone rejects you, it's easy to make it personal, to go into a spiral of self-doubt. What did I do wrong? Why wasn't I enough? What could I have done differently? But rejection isn't always about you. Sometimes it's about them. Their fears, their limitations, their baggage. Sometimes it's timing. Sometimes it's just misalignment. But more often than not, it's life doing you a favor that you won't recognize until later. Rejection forces us to pause, to reevaluate, to get honest about what we've been chasing and why. It's a wake-up call, a pivot point. And if you're paying attention, it's also an invitation. An invitation to stop trying to fit in where you don't belong. An invitation to let go of who you thought you needed to be and start becoming who you really are. That person, that version of you, they don't chase approval. They don't need to prove their worth to anyone. They trust that what's meant for them won't require begging, bending, or breaking themselves to fit in. When someone says no to you, whether directly or through their actions, they're setting you free. It might not feel like that in the moment. It might feel like loss, failure, or heartbreak. But later, when you're standing in a room full of people who see you, hear you, and value you, you'll look back and realize that rejection was divine protection. It was guidance in disguise. Here's the thing about redirection. It doesn't always come with a map. It comes with discomfort. It comes with uncertainty. It comes with the kind of silence that forces you to listen to your intuition. And that's where your power lives. not in being chosen, but in choosing yourself. When you stop chasing what's walking away from you, you start walking toward what's meant for you. But you can't do both at the same time. You have to let go in order to move forward. Let's stop romanticizing being accepted by people who don't value us. Let's stop thinking that rejection means we weren't enough. You were enough. You are enough. You're just not for everyone. And that's okay. You're not supposed to be. You're not a universal fit. You're a unique soul with a specific frequency. The right people, the right opportunities, the right paths, they'll match that frequency. You won't have to scream to be heard. You won't have to shrink to be loved. Rejection is a mirror that shows you the places where you've been settling. It reveals the areas where you've been dimming your light, compromising your values, or chasing things out of fear instead of alignment. And when you see that clearly, you can make better choices. You can start walking in the direction of your truth instead of someone else's comfort. So the next time something doesn't work out, the next time someone pulls away or a door closes, take a breath. Pause before you spiral. Ask yourself, what if this isn't a loss? What if this is redirection? And trust that even though it feels hard now, something better is waiting on the other side of this letting go. Because here's the truth. Life is never taking something from you without preparing to replace it with something more aligned. You just have to be willing to release your grip on what's gone in order to receive what's coming. You can't control others, only yourself. That might sound obvious, but how often do we live like we've forgotten? How many times have you exhausted yourself trying to get someone to see things your way, to treat you better, to care as much as you do? You give, explain, argue, beg, and sometimes even change parts of yourself just to earn a response, a reaction, or validation. And what happens? You end up frustrated, drained, and resentful. Why? Because you're trying to manage something that was never yours to manage in the first place, their behavior. Let's get real. You can't make someone respect you. You can't force someone to stay. You can't trick someone into being consistent, honest, or loyal. You can't rewrite someone's values with your effort. And the longer you try, the more disconnected you become from your own power. Because every time you focus on changing them, you give away a little more of your energy. You slowly abandon yourself, trying to save something that depends on their willingness, not just your effort. Control is an illusion we chase when we feel unsafe. When we're afraid of being hurt, rejected, or left behind, we try to overcompensate by managing every variable. You stop thinking that your love or effort alone is enough to change someone's entire way of being. You start understanding that healthy relationships are about choice, mutual choice. Both people have to want to be there. Both people have to show up. It can't be you dragging the weight of the relationship behind you, hoping they catch up. When you take ownership of your side of the street, your emotions, your energy, your growth, you stop waiting for other people to change before you feel good about your life. You stop giving away your peace in exchange for their attention. And that shift changes everything. You become more grounded, more secure, more powerful, because you know your happiness doesn't depend on anyone else. It depends on how you choose to show up in the world. So stop trying to control the uncontrollable. Let people be who they are. Let them show you what they're about. And when they do, believe them. Then ask yourself, is this what I want to align with? That's your power. Not in changing them, but in choosing what and who you allow into your life. You can't control others, but you can control your energy, your standards, your choices, and that's more than enough. Self-worth is internal, not determined by others. That truth is one of the hardest lessons to absorb in a world that constantly tries to convince you otherwise. From the time we're young, we're taught, often indirectly, that our value comes from how others see us. Are we liked? Are we popular? Are we chosen? And so we begin the chase. We chase approval. We chase acceptance. We chase love. And in the process, we forget that our worth isn't something out there. It's something within. When you rely on others to validate your worth, you hand over your power. You place your value in hands that are inconsistent, biased, and often unaware of your true self. You make how you feel about yourself. If they like you, you feel good. If they ignore you, you question yourself. That's a dangerous place to live because it means your identity is always on the line. And the truth is, no one should have that much power over you. You are not valuable because someone loves you. You are not worthy because you're accepted into a friend group, praised by a boss, or admired by a partner. You're valuable because you exist. You're worthy because you breathe. Nothing anyone says or doesn't say about you can change the truth of your worth. And once you realize that, you stop bending to fit into places that weren't built for you. You stop editing yourself for approval. You stop begging for a love that you never had to earn in the first place. When you find your self-worth internally, something shifts. You stop needing validation and start appreciating affirmation. Those are two very different things. Validation is a need. It's external. It says, tell me I'm enough so I can believe it. But affirmation, that's different. Affirmation is a bonus. It says, I know I'm enough. And it's nice when you see it too, but I don't need you to. That mindset is powerful because it means you're rooted in something unshakable. You're not swayed by moods, opinions, or silence. You're grounded. People will come and go. Opinions will change. One moment you'll be praised, and the next criticized. If your self-worth depends on the applause, then it will also crumble with the silence. You have to build something deeper, something internal. You have to know who you are when no one is clapping, when no one is calling, when no one is noticing, because that version of you, the quiet, unvalidated, unseen version, is still worthy, still valuable, still enough. One of the biggest lies we're sold is that we need to earn love, that we need to prove ourselves to be chosen. But love that has to be earned through performance isn't real love. It's conditional approval. And self-worth that relies on conditional love is fragile. It breaks the moment you stop performing. Real self-worth doesn't require you to constantly be on. It allows you to rest, to say no, to walk away, to disappoint people when necessary, and still know you're enough. It's not arrogance. It's not pride. It's wholeness. It's wholeness. It's the ability to look at yourself, flaws and all, and still stand in the truth that you are worthy, not because you're perfect, but because you are growing, showing up, and doing the work. Self-worth isn't a destination, it's a daily decision, a practice. Some days you'll feel it fully. Other days you'll have to remind yourself. And that's okay. What matters is that you keep coming back to yourself. You don't need everyone to like you. You don't need to be chosen by people who don't understand you. You don't need to shrink to fit into someone else's definition of enough. You get to define that for yourself, and when you do, you start living in a way that is real. You stop settling. You stop chasing. You stop forcing connections that require you to betray yourself. The people who truly see you, the ones who are aligned with your spirit, not just your image, they will show up, and you won't need to convince them. You won't need to prove your worth to them. They'll recognize it because they've done the work to recognize their own. That's what aligned energy looks like. So remember this, you are not defined by how others treat you. You are not a reflection of someone else's inability to see your value. You are enough exactly as you are, not when you achieve something, not when someone loves you back, not when you're finally noticed. Right now, just as you are, that's where your self-worth lives. Let go with grace. That's one of the most empowering things you'll ever learn to do in your life. Not everything is meant to be held on to. Not every person, not every connection, not every situation is supposed to last forever. And that's not failure. It's part of growth. One of the most courageous acts of self-respect is recognizing when something or someone no longer aligns with who you are becoming and choosing to walk away with peace, not bitterness. But here's what happens to so many of us. We hold on. We grip tight. We stay longer than we should, because we don't want to feel the discomfort of letting go. We try to fix it. We overextend. We tell ourselves maybe if we try a little harder, give a little more, explain ourselves one more time, they'll understand, they'll change, they'll stay. But the truth is, forcing what's no longer meant to be only drains you. It robs you of your energy, your joy, your clarity, and eventually it leaves you disconnected from yourself. Letting go doesn't mean you didn't care. It doesn't mean you failed. It means you finally realized your worth is not tied to keeping something together that's falling apart on its own. It means you've decided your peace matters more than someone else's comfort. It means you've made a decision to honor the person you're becoming, even if it means disappointing the person you used to be. When we hold on too tightly, we leave no room for better to come in. We become so focused on what we're afraid to lose that we don't notice what we're actually losing ourselves. We compromise our values. We abandon our needs. We tolerate behavior that disrespects our boundaries, all because we're afraid that letting go will hurt more than holding on. But what if it's the other way around? What if holding on is the thing slowly breaking your spirit? Letting go with grace is not about walking away in anger. It's about walking away in truth. It's about accepting reality without needing to villainize anyone. Sometimes people outgrow each other. Sometimes what served you in one season is no longer aligned in the next. Sometimes love is real, but it's not enough to sustain a healthy connection, and that's okay. You can honor what something was without forcing it to be what it no longer is. There's incredible power in saying, "This no longer fits who I am." It's not selfish. It's self-aware. It's choosing to live in alignment with your values, your peace, your purpose. It's recognizing that life isn't about clinging. It's about flowing. It's about flow. It's about trusting that when something leaves your life, it creates space for something better. And that better isn't always a new person or opportunity. It's often a stronger, more authentic version of you. Letting go gracefully also means you stop needing closure from others. You stop waiting for an apology, an explanation, or permission to move on. You give yourself that closure. You decide to stop bleeding for someone who didn't care enough to stop the cut. You close the chapter not because it ended perfectly, but because your peace is worth more than staying stuck in a story that no longer serves you. And yes, it's hard, it hurts. There will be moments when you miss what was, when the memories come back, when your mind plays tricks on you and says, maybe I made a mistake. But you didn't. You made a decision to honor your growth. And with time, you'll see how that one decision created ripple effects in your life. You'll look back and thank yourself for being brave enough to release what wasn't serving you, even when it was hard. You don't have to slam the door. You don't have to burn the bridge, but you do have to walk through the next one. You do have to choose yourself. You do have to trust that anything or anyone you have to beg to stay is not aligned with the life you're meant to live. So take a breath, loosen your grip, let go, not with resentment, but with grace. Because grace is strength, grace is maturity, grace is freedom, grace is freedom. And on the other side of that release is something beautiful waiting for you. Peace, clarity, and the kind of life that doesn't require you to hold on so tightly just to feel whole.